Hello, MMA Fight fans, and welcome to another edition of the Art of Fighting podcast. My name is Eric Tillotson, along with my co-host, Mr. Stephen Page. And we have another exciting episode for you. We're going to talk, of course, about the art of fighting, and we're going to delve into mixed martial arts, the evolution of mixed martial arts, the evolution of fighting in mixed martial arts, and also styles and fighters. So with that said, Stephen, what do you got for us today? And what are some of the topics that are going to interest our listeners?
Well, first off, everybody, please like, comment, subscribe to this channel. We love doing this. The more subscribes means the more we love to do it. So please hit that subscribe button, hit that bell icon, hit that like icon. Even if you don't like it, hit the dislike. We don't care. We like doing this. We do it for fun.
Yeah.
Leave a comment below of what you think about the video and what else you want to see from us. So please keep commenting and all that stuff. So Eric, we're going to be talking about old school versus new school MMA fighters.
Okay.
So MMA has been around for years, including the no holds barred, catch wrestling,
Right.
stuff like that.
Like Vale Tudo, even from Brazil.
Yeah, and even in the early 1920s with the Gracie Challenge and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
Back when like Helio was doing it and stuff like that, and Hicks and all those guys. The thing is though is we're talking about MMA in the sense of when it got popularized by the UFC.
Okay.
And when it evolved, and even back then, and for the viewers at home, back then it wasn't called MMA. It was called no holds barred fighting, or some call it cage fighting,
extreme fighting.
Yeah, extreme fighting.
Vale Tudo is what they called it in Brazil.
Yeah. Back in Japan, they called it pancrase, and it was like pro wrestling mixed with kickboxing.
Shoot fighting.
Yeah, shoot fighting. Yeah, shoot fighting. So, but we're going to talk about from 1993 to the modern era, and we're going to break down into three areas: from 93 to 2000, and then 2001 to 2010, then 2011 to now,
to present time.
Yeah. So roughly 9 to 10 years difference. So first off, when I was only 3 years old when the first UFC came out, and that was in Denver, and that was one heck of an event, but. Like there were senators like John McCain who said that was human cockfighting. He didn't like it because obviously like the very first fight I remember watching in the UFC ever was when I can't remember his name, but he was a Savate kickboxer fighting a sumo fighter, and he kicked the sumo fighter while he was down in the head, and his teeth went flying out of the ring.
Gerard Gordeau.
Yes, there you go. You know the names better than me.
Yeah, Gerard Gordeau, and that was actually in UFC 1. That was the very first bout. So when the UFC first came out, obviously it was on pay-per-view, and when it came out on pay-per-view, I think it was like I want to say it was like $14.99 or something.
Wow.
Well, I mean
but
that was for the times.
Yeah.
I mean, because you could get like a Mike Tyson fight for $29.95. You know, that's what pay-per-view fights were then.
Back then, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, when those fights happened, but if you didn't get the pay-per-view, you had to get a VHS tape of it. You had to go check it out at Blockbuster or Movie Buffs or a place like that had that. And ironically enough, it was in the adult section, the same as like where Faces of Death was, and where horror movies and where extreme adult movies would be held. I mean, that's what it was looked at, is this bloody, uncontrolled sport, not even a sport, more like a spectacle. That was going on, and that's how it was looked at. What was a spectacle? I remember when the first UFC was advertised. I remember seeing it on TV and in some magazines, and it was like fight style against fight style, and they were talking about this thing. I thought a lot of people thought it was like pro wrestling.
Well, yeah. Well, and the thing is, though, is the whole thing of the like you're saying is that's like schoolyard thing of like, remember probably growing up, like what would happen if Bruce Lee fought Chuck Norris, really fought him, or if Mike Tyson fought Bruce Lee, or if Mike Tyson fought Chuck Norris, who would win? It was that schoolyard thing that we'd always talk about in the school.
It was
of who was the best fighter, and especially, and it was kind of the same thing with.
And there was actually there was actually a talk of Mike Tyson, because Mike Tyson signed with Pride of having
Yes.
Rickson Gracie fight Mike Tyson, but
Wow.
Mike Tyson, Rickson Gracie wanted $1 million to do it.
Oh, wow.
And
Well, they couldn't do it.
They couldn't afford.
happen.
They couldn't afford that. So
Well, and the thing that's crazy is that there's always been exhibition fights between this art versus that art.
Mm-hmm.
Like for instance, my orthopedic surgeon, his dad is George Nelson.
Mm-hmm.
If anybody knows who George Nelson, he is like a world-renowned wrestler,
Mm-hmm.
and he was one of the first guys to actually. It was back in the 1940s and 50s that he was one of the first ones to actually do wrestling versus jiu-jitsu.
Mm.
And but he fought a Japanese jiu-jitsu guy, not like a Brazilian jiu-jitsu artist.
So there wasn't as many submissions and things like that as there is now.
As there is now.
Yeah.
So, but the biggest thing is like but in the UFC sense, there was all these arts versus arts.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, and even into the early 2000s, the main people that were now it was singular arts, like we're saying, like it was art versus art. So you had like kickboxers, you had wrestlers, you had jiu-jitsu fighters, and usually the grapplers or the ground fighter, for those that don't know, jiu-jitsu, wrestling, judo, the sambo, those guys were on top. They were considered the best of the best.
Well, the whole reason they started it was an extension of the Gracie Challenge.
Yes.
Jorge Gracie selected his younger brother, Hoist,
Yeah.
because they wanted somebody that wasn't really big. So that's why Rickson didn't do it. They wanted somebody that wasn't the biggest
Itty-bitty.
guy in the tournament.
Yeah.
They wanted to show that a smaller guy could win this whole thing And
against
that's-
heavyweights.
against heavyweights, against heavy people.
Yeah.
And the only guy really in the tournament that knew anything about submissions was Ken Shamrock.
With besides Hoist, yeah.
Yeah, besides Hoist, because he was doing pancrase fights
Yeah.
over in Japan.
And he had catch wrestling and sambo and shoot fighting
Shoot
and stuff,
fighting.
and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So all the way up until the 2000s, late 90s, 2000s, they were still singular art fighters.
Yeah.
Like when I first started martial arts, which was around that time frame, there was no such thing as mixed martial arts. Now, the actual term of mixed martial arts, and I did some research on this because I was helping one of my students because she's doing a research project for college on mixed martial arts. The actual term name and coin name for mixed martial arts did not actually officially happen until 1999 by the International Mixed Martial Arts Federation, and they were the first ones to actually coin the phrase mixed martial arts as a sense of it is a thing. But all the way up till then, there were still guys that were just
there were guys saying it.
but
I know Jeff Blatnick called it mixed martial arts, but he said it's a mix of martial arts.
Yeah, it's a mixture.
It's a mix of it's a mixture of martial arts.
It's not actually a thing called
yeah.
MMA.
Yeah, I didn't call it MMA like they do now.
Yeah, and so the thing is the whole thing was, even when I was doing martial arts at that age, it was that's it. Like you did one art. So for me, it was
Karate, Taekwondo, Kempo. There was just one style.
One style.
Yeah, one style.
That's it. You
Yep.
didn't, and it was the whole. If there was somebody from a different style, it was my style can kick your style's ass.
Yeah, and that's kind of how this whole thing started.
That's how the whole thing started.
How it started.
Then we go on into the early 2000s into the late 2000s of 2010 before we get in the modern era, and that's when we obviously had the Dana White and the Fertitta brothers come in, and they revamped the UFC, and then you also had the what we called the kind of like with WWE and the WCW is kind of the same thing. It was UFC versus Pride. A lot of guys were jumping ship to go to Pride because they were better paying. They could fight in Japan. They were more recognized.
Well, if you really look at it too, is Dana White took Chuck Liddell over to Pride as his manager, and even when he was the owner of the UFC, they wanted to fight Wanderlei Silva.
Yes.
And so they said, if you want to fight Wanderlei Silva, then you have to enter Chuck into the tournament. Well, so they entered him into this tournament because back then the weight classes used to be 199 and below.
Yeah.
And so Chuck fought his very first fight. He drew Alistair Overeem in his first bout. That's when Alistair fought at 205 or 199.
Yeah.
So he fought Chuck and went to the next round, got beat by Rampage Jackson, and Vonderlei kind of had a cakewalk through
all his guys,
all his guys on that side of the bracket.
Yeah.
He ended up fighting, anyway, Vonderlei ended up winning the tournament, and
becoming champion.
And then Dana lost the bet with Pride. It was a $500,000 bet.
Wow.
And then they didn't fight, of course, until the UFC bought Pride and brought Vonderlei over to the
UFC.
To the UFC, and then they fought. But it was later in their career when they were both kind of past their prime.
Yeah. But during that time, we saw the emergence of mixed martial arts, and especially the mixed martial arts fighter. Before, like we were saying, you were a singular fighter. For instance, like Hoist was called a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu fighter or a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu artist. Then you had like Dan Severn, who was a wrestler.
He was a wrestler.
Then you had guys like, and so on and so forth. Or like we were just talking about, Oleg. Was
Oleg
a samboist.
Yeah, he was a sambo fighter.
Yeah, he was a sambo fighter. We're samboist.
Yeah.
So, but now you would actually get what's called mixed martial arts. But with that, you would have the mixed martial arts fighters. They would have now. You had guys like GSP, Anderson Silva, who had, and even Ronda Rousey. Later in the early 2000s and that stuff, that were multi-art fighters. Like GSP came in as a karate because he had a black belt in Kyokushin karate, but then he picked up wrestling.
Oh yeah.
I think one of the first UFCs I saw him, and he was walking out in his gi, and he had a purple belt for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He was a purple belt, but he was wrestling and doing, but his striking was mainly karate / kickboxing.
Kickboxing. Yeah.
Like Dutch style kickboxing. Then you have like Anderson Silva. And not a lot of people know this, but Anderson Silva's first art he ever got a black belt in, or even was like really like his first art was actually Taekwondo.
Yeah. Well, you can kind of tell from his style.
Yeah, his style.
Those kicks that he throws, and just his speed and
his power.
Yeah.
So, but everybody knows him for his Muay Thai and his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu underneath the Nogueira brothers. So he had that thing where he had a couple arts. He had his striking and he had his ground game.
Sure.
And see, when I started mixed martial arts, which was in 2008, it was the same thing where it was you had to learn a striking art and a grappling art, and that was it. See, for me, I had a background in wrestling and a background in karate, so I was already set. But it was kind of one of those things where if you went to gyms and they were like, okay, your wrestling's gonna work, karate, not so much, because the karate was kind of tainted with the UFC and also with other things, until the mergers of like Lyoto Machida and stuff like that. But the thing is, though, is that these guys were starting to develop into a full true fighter. They weren't afraid to go to the ground.
No,
they weren't afraid to stand up with their opponents.
And you see a lot of that right now with guys that are typically like wrestlers. I mean, like Johnny Hendricks was a wrestler, Division I wrestler, and then he really learned to have a good striking game. A good kickboxing game.
Yep.
And there's numerous fighters that have learned the whole
game.
The whole game.
And we'll talk about more of those in here in a sec. So, like, for you, when you started, what was like your background, and what did you like when you started in mixed martial arts? What was your background, and what did you notice you had to develop into?
Well, I started, believe it or not, I kind of started with fitness is what I started in. Like weights, kettlebells, things like that. And then I kind of started learning how to box, kickbox. Wrestling always came natural to me because I did it in high school.
Okay.
And
so you were a wrestler.
Yeah. So and wrestling had always been kind of an easier thing to me.
Everybody has that click.
I knew how to shoot. I kind of knew the mechanics of wrestling. So that really helped me. I couldn't throw a punch. I mean, but I was also a bigger guy too.
Yeah.
I was 255 pounds. I was lifting a lot. I was powerlifting. So I was very rigid. I didn't have any type of stretching or
flexibility.
Flexibility at all. I didn't stretch. No hips. And then when I went to Foley's, that all changed because I got to train with guys that had the whole thing, guys that had fought, guys that had come into the sport as wrestlers and learned how to box and learned submission grappling or jiu-jitsu. And so that was kind of how I got into it, and then just really got into it.
Yeah.
And one thing led to another, and from that to fighting to teaching and to learning more and more, and imparting of information to students and things like that.
Yeah.
And just kind of learning it and then passing it on to the next generation. So
And
that's been what's cool about it.
And so for you, when I first met you, which was in, I don't know, like 2000, it was like 2010, 2011, around there. You when I met you, you were I knew you as a wrestler and a kickboxer. That was it. Like you had really good ground and pound. You knew how to set up your takedowns with your kickboxing, and that's all I knew you as. But now, after training with me and my kind of stuff, now you have stuff from karate. You have stuff from taekwondo. You have boxing. I mean, your boxing's been developing for years, and it's amazing. Then you have, working with me with your sambo and your Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
The submissions.
Yeah, your
the submissions
game.
that I never really used. Or used. Now I can use them, and it's cool. And that's what's awesome about the sport itself. What's crazy, here's the crazy thing. Okay? Think about this. Fighting in the last 25 years has come farther than it's gone in the last 2,500 years.
Yeah, it's true.
I mean, really, think about that. I mean, boxing, even back in the 40s and the 50s,
when it was the golden era.
Yeah. What if they would have incorporated? Now there was a few people doing that. Gene LaBelle was incorporating judo with some striking and things like that. But Gene LaBelle would even say he was no world-class striker.
No.
He was a grappler. He was a grappler until he learned how to, actually get some technique behind it.
Yeah.
And he had the chance to work with Bruce Lee and real championship boxers, but he had the wrestling, he had the judo.
Yeah.
Therefore, he had some submissions.
Yep.
Yep.
So now we go into, like you were talking about, the modern era with MMA, and this is where we're at and where I've developed into, because I was the same way. I was a singular art, learned a couple. And everybody knew me as a kickboxer, wrestler, and a jiu-jitsu guy. But a lot of people only knew me because they didn't really see, like, when you first started training with me and training as training partner, you only saw me as a grappler, and a lot of people only did, because that's what I relied on, because it came natural to me.
Yeah.
But then I'd say about in 2015,
you stepped outside of that.
I stepped outside of that and went completely into karate, taekwondo, kickboxing, and focused purely, because my coach, who's still my coach, Ammon Hatch, said, you need to work on your striking. You need to not focus on grappling, don't focus on MMA, just work on your striking.
Which is kind of different, because you could have learned that when you were like 8 or 9, and then had that up till you were like in your teens, then learned the whole modern art, but you kind of flipped it around and learned the traditional art in with the modern art.
Yeah.
Don't you think that's helped you?
Yeah, it's helped me.
Yeah.
And see, talking about that with the whole traditional art is, what's funny is we had this emergence, like you said, the multi-art fighters in the modern era, like from 2011 till now.
Yeah, who are some of those? Do you think?
I think honestly, the one that really shows me that's put it all together, that's really big, that has the kickboxing, the Muay Thai, the jiu-jitsu, the wrestling, is John Jones. Yeah. Like, he is a perfect example of the, like, he can do everything and anything. And he even employs taekwondo moves. He uses karate moves. Like, his lead side kick to the thigh, that's a karate move all day.
Sure. You know who I think? Tony Ferguson. Perfect.
I didn't think about that. Yeah.
And the guy is like, he's an ace under the 10th planet system.
He's a black belt.
Yeah, he's an ace under that, but yet he still employs like old karate.
Well,
and
Wing Chun.
Wing Chun.
He even used Wing Chun. Where he'll grab, and this is a perfect Wing Chun.
He did it in his last fight.
Yeah, he'll do a back fist and do an elbow.
And go into chain punching and things like that. That's what's so amazing about. I don't think the art. I don't think there's going to be. This is my opinion now. I could be way wrong, but I don't think there's going to be anything that comes along like BJJ did at the time.
Yeah.
With the advent of the UFC, like, that's going to be this other
New thing,
overwhelming art, you
Yeah.
know, because what's it going to be? It can't be with weapons because that's been around for years and
Years,
years,
yeah.
you know, samurai and things like that. But katana fighting and things like that. But what else is going to come along? I don't know if it can.
I don't think
other than the complete fighter learning MMA.
and learning every aspect of
it.
MMA, and even like you're saying, like with Tony, he's got wrestling, he's got Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu with the 10 plan system, you know, and he's their like you said, he's their ace. He's their moniker of the perfect MMA fighter out of the 10 planet system.
Yeah.
And then you have, you know, guys like
The Danaher guys.
The Danaher guys,
Yeah,
look, you look at, like, for instance, like Gary Tonin.
Gary Tonen's into MMA now.
He's in MMA, and he was,
Yeah.
he's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champion.
What about Kron Gracie?
And yeah, but they have the striking, and they have the wrestling, and they have the Muay Thai, and that's what's crazy. Another one that actually really kind of I noticed that really developed into it was Valentina Shevchenko, where she was a Muay Thai fighter, but she has the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, she has the wrestling.
Yeah, and she had hundreds of kickboxing and
Muay Thai fights,
and Muay Thai
and
fights.
world championships. I think 5 Muay Thai fights or
That's
world
crazy.
championships.
It's crazy.
But she doesn't just use that now. Like you see her, like when she first went into the 125 division in the UFC, she submitted Juliana Lima with a freaking armbar. Like
Juliana Pena
or Pena,
Yeah.
And she just mopped the floor with her.
Yeah, it's amazing how the evolution of all of these fighters is just. And now what you're seeing, you're not only seeing the evolution of all the arts, now you're seeing the athlete.
Yes.
Okay? You're not just seeing somebody that's a brawler that can do all these things. You're seeing like a world-class athlete. Somebody like, I mean, a LeBron James or like John Jones, man, that guy's an athlete.
He is an athlete.
He's an athlete. I mean, both of his brothers play in the NFL.
NFL, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so you're talking now you're going to see guys that instead of doing the traditional stick and ball sports or basketball, football, baseball, they're going to be doing martial arts. And
you look
at
you look at what's his name, Dan Hardy, or no, not Dan Hardy. I know Greg Hardy.
Oh yeah, the football player.
He was a football player.
Yeah.
Now he's one of the up and coming prospects in the heavyweight division.
Yeah, I mean he's literally a couple of fights away if he wins from winning a title.
Or having a title
I mean,
shot.
He's right in there. He's won like 4 heavyweight fights in the UFC already.
Yeah, so I mean,
in dominating fashion.
So my thing is, but now the other thing is besides this modern thing is, you're also seeing these guys who are traditionalists or singular art fighters who are starting to emerge. Like you get guys like, for instance, like MVP, Michael Venom Page, who is a karate taekwondo fighter, and he's only had 1 loss in his career.
I would love to see that guy fight in the UFC.
I would too.
Because I don't know if he's getting the best opponents in Bellator.
Well, I mean, he fought
the guy that he's fighting next. I've never even heard of him.
I've never heard of him either.
Yeah, and I don't know what the purpose is. Maybe they had somebody else, and I don't know. But I would really, I'd like to see him. And what weight does he fight?
He fights at 170.
So
So he would be in there with
Douglas Lima.
So he fought Douglas Lima, and Douglas Lima beat him.
Yeah, that's his only loss.
That's his only loss. But just think about in the UFC, like Tyrone Woodley, Colby Covington, Robbie Lawler, Ben Askren,
Justin Gaethje.
Yeah, Justin Gaethje. Holy crap.
Justin Gaethje is like...
Or Donald... Yeah.
There's a couple of guys...
Well, Justin Gaethje's actually a lightweight now.
So there's a couple of guys I've been following for years. And I've got old magazines to prove that I've been following these guys for years.
You have. I've seen it.
Yeah. Jorge Masvidal is somebody that's just now getting his just due. Yeah. But I remember that guy back in 2011, 2012.
Yeah.
Even before that, when he was, because he fought in Strikeforce.
Yes.
When he made it into Strikeforce, but he was fighting on regional shows, made it in there, and I always thought that guy was going to be like a really good fighter, and now
he's showing it.
He's coming into his own. It's like, because when he got into the sport, he was, 18, 19 years old.
Yeah.
Now he's getting into his man body.
Yeah.
It's like, it's all come together.
Yeah.
But
it's like you said, MVP, it'd be great, but like he's like that style, and then you get guys like what I would love to see, and I think it would be funny as hell, is to watch Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, who's a karate taekwondo fighter, versus MVP, and they're both at the same weight division. That would be a show, like flying legs.
Yeah, because in that too, you've got like speed against speed, technique against technique. Both of them have a ground game.
They do.
Yeah, both of them have a ground game, and their athleticism is through the roof. So,
but you get these guys, and like another one that we've actually watched live, that is considered more of a singular art fighter, even though he's got a ground game. He has phenomenal Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Is Yair Rodriguez, who's fighting this weekend against Jeremy Stevens in Mexico for the UFC. And the thing is the singular art fighters, even like Joanna Young.
How do you see that one?
That one, that's I gotta go with my boy. I mean, Yair's. I mean, Stevens. That's the thing. That's a hard thing because Jeremy Stevens, he's a combat corner guy. So I love combat corner.
So here's my opinion. I think if Yair stays on the outside and moves around and gets it, but if Jeremy hits so hard,
it's like a freaking missile.
Yeah, and we know Yair can be broken down because Frankie Edgar did it to him.
Yes.
So we know that Yair Rodriguez can be broken down, And I don't know about you, but I think Jeremy Stevens probably hits harder than Frankie.
I think he does too.
I mean, Frankie hits hard.
Yeah.
He hits very hard, but Jeremy Stevens is a different animal, and I think he is going to be so amped up for this opportunity, for this fight. It's going to be good.
And that's the thing is like this opportunity can shoot him really fast into the title picture.
It could.
So for either one.
It could.
So, but what we're talking about though is, and we kind of got off track, but the singular fighters are starting to merge. Like we have like Khabib, who is considered a samboist / wrestler. That's all he uses really. He just mauls you.
That is a skill.
That is a skill.
I mean, Ben Askren used it for a long, long time. If you can't get up, that's a skill.
That is a skill.
If you can't get off the ground, that's a skill. And people say, "Oh, that's boring" or whatever. You know what? No.
It's technical.
And in this last fight, Khabib took some shots and stood.
And banged. And the thing is like, so for me, I see two things. I see two things happening. I'm seeing these singular art fighters who are learning who are just honing that craft.
Yeah.
To the point where they can keep up with the guys like Tony Ferguson, these or like Tyrone Woodley or any of these guys that have are multi art fighters.
Yeah.
But you see this emergence, like I say, you see this emergence of singular art fighters, especially in wrestling.
Did you see Tyrone wants to fight Khabib?
Yeah, at a catch weight at 165.
How do you think that'd go?
That's a hard one.
Yeah.
I know Askren wants it too.
Khabib is so, along with the technique, he is so ungodly strong too. And it's that controlled strength where we can hold it.
Yeah.
He can hold it and he can put it on, turn it off, put it on, turn it off.
Yeah.
And it's hard for guys it frustrates people.
Olympian Daniel Cormier said that he is nothing but strong from his fingertips to his toes, and he has trouble getting Khabib off him, and he's twice his size.
It's crazy.
So
that's crazy.
So now, Mr. Eric Tillotson, in your opinion, for the modern mixed martial arts, what 4 or 5 arts would you say that, like, for the viewers can know, in your personal opinion, what 4 or 5 arts would they have to train to become like, for somebody like, let's say the 17, 18-year-old that's watching?
I'll give it to you.
Yeah.
In importance.
Yeah, in importance. Okay.
Number 1, wrestling.
Okay.
Wrestling, because you learn position, you learn the ground, you learn the grind.
Yes.
If you're a good wrestler, you don't run out of energy because you have trained really hard.
Yep.
Okay. Number 2, I would say, would definitely have to be, along with the wrestling, is submissions. So jiu-jitsu. Yeah. 3 would be good technical Muay Thai or kickboxing. Okay. And 4, strength and conditioning.
Okay.
So when I say kickboxing, I also do mean boxing in with that. But I'm talking, when I say, let's just say 3, Muay Thai, because it's going to incorporate strikes, elbows, the art of 8 limbs. And then number 4 is strength and conditioning. Is strength and conditioning with diet.
Yeah. I agree. So for me, because I'm more of a traditionalist and I'm super unorthodox, For me, number one is either judo or wrestling, something that will get you to the ground.
Okay.
That's number one.
Yeah.
Number two would same thing, something with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu or even Sambo, something that gives you the submissions.
Yeah.
Or catch wrestling.
Sure.
Something like that.
Yeah.
The next one is, I would say you're right, is kickboxing. And I'm going by precedence too, is kickboxing. The reason why, but when I say kickboxing, I'm the same thing. I'm mainly saying like kickboxing as a whole, like Muay Thai, mainly Muay Thai or like Dutch.
So something
American.
with the clinch and with the elbows and the knees,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
Yes.
I think that's important too.
Then I would say this, because I'm an orthodox, I'd say find an art that is not common. So for instance, like Taekwondo, karate, Wing Chun, something that will, or even, or like if you're not doing Sambo or something, go into Sambo, something that's different.
What about something like a self-defense art? What about Krav Maga?
Or Krav,
I mean, with that, you learn hand movement, foot movement, everything.
You learn everything. You learn the clinch. They're not perfect at everything, but they know a lot. They know how to hand fight. They know how to gun. They know how to gunfight. They know how to knife fight, stick fight, self-defense. Yeah, no problem. Me personally, I'd say, but like I said, I would say with something like, for me, everybody knows me. That's the funny thing is, everybody now knows me as an elite striker. It's like a high level elite striker because I'm a Pan American champ in Taekwondo. I'm a national champ in Taekwondo. I've gone, I've been looked at by Team USA. So everybody thinks, and they know I'm a kickboxer and they know how good I am at kickboxing. So everybody thinks that, but it's like, I have a ground game, and people don't want to play with my ground game most of the time. They get scared of it.
Yeah.
So I would say, someone like that, have something that makes you unique.
Right.
Don't be like everybody else. Be unique. Like, that's why I'm so different. And people like look at me and they're like, he kind of either it's like I want to train with him or I don't want to fight him because I'm unique. I'm different. I'm a heavyweight and I throw spinning hook kicks and jumping double touch spinning back kicks.
And that's not very common for a guy your size at all.
At all.
So.
And then the last one is the same thing. The thing that's different compared to like when I first started and you probably first started is strength and conditioning and with the diet and actually having a coach. Either that already knows it, or
a mentor,
or you have a coach that is that is just for strength and conditioning. Like I have my striking coach, I have my wrestling coach, I have my BJJ coach, and I have my strength and conditioning coach, and then I have my manager. And so it's like I have everything that I need
that you need
to push my
facilitate those skills and those things.
Yeah, not only that to push forward, so to grow and to become better. So, but strength and conditioning is a big thing. It makes or breaks a fight. Even if you're even if you're not a wrestler and you're not used to that grind, strength and conditioning will teach you that grind because they'll teach you like, okay, you got to push past those boundaries, those comfort levels.
Yeah, there's nothing like it.
So, well, that's all we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to actually come back again and talk about the same thing, but we're going to be talking about gyms, and we're also going to be like talking about how, like for instance, my gym. How we teach multiple martial arts here. We don't just teach jiu-jitsu, wrestling, and kickboxing. We teach karate, taekwondo, sambo. We teach everything here. So, or Russian grappling. I can't really say sambo because I haven't been officially ranked in it. So, but, and 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu, everything, boxing, and we apply it for MMA. We apply it for those arts, whatever it is. So yeah, so we're gonna do that. The other thing I want to come back and talk to you more about, and maybe we can get a couple other people, or maybe somebody else to talk about this, is the evolution of the rules from where it was no hold barred, anything goes, except you can't. The only thing
two men enter, one man leaves.
Yeah, the only thing you can't do is punch the groin, fish hook, and stick your eye and eye gouge. That's the only thing you cannot do.
I was
holy cow.
When I was just reviewing some of the older fights, and there's a Fedor Sambo coach, was a very famous MMA fighter in Russia, and I can't pronounce his name, but one of the things and it's legal at the time, it was a chin in the eye socket.
Yes,
and he actually got Igor Vovchanchin to tap to it.
Wow.
So yeah, pretty crazy.
Yeah, and yeah, see that, but like that stuff. So we're gonna come back, ladies and gentlemen. We're gonna talk about that evolution because it was dark.
And another couple things I want to talk to you about is a few of the greats of MMA that you've never heard of. A few of the great fighters in MMA that you have never heard of and you will want to do some research on.
Yeah. So he's got the history, and you do. You have the history.
I know a lot about this stuff, and so I'm going to share with you guys some of my favorite fighters that you've probably never heard of. And that's all I got to say today.
That's all I got.
Along with pink sparkles, everybody, pink sparkles.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, for myself, Stephen Bennett Page, Storm and Eric Tillison, we're signing off. Have a wonderful day. Never quit. Always keep fighting. Rise to victory.
Tip your waitresses. Sparkles.